I'm Boots, and this is my story. I was raised in a Jehovah's Witness family right here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And my mother's from Brooklyn, New York. She met my father out there when he was in ministry school. He was an elder here in the congregation for the Sioux Falls Jehovah's Witnesses Kingdom Hall. And we spent our childhood traveling around, and he would give talks at different congregations and things like that. And you know, we went door to door like everybody else, and I always knew it just wasn't for me. There was a lot of things that just didn't connect, and I didn't want to be a part of their faith, and I didn't fit into their faith. And when I was young, I did not have a name for it, but as I hit puberty, I realized that name was lesbian. And I was outed in the 8th grade by someone I thought I could trust by disclosing my sexual preference, and didn't go the way I thought. By the end of the school day, everybody knew, because she told them, and also created some pretty vicious rumors about me, saying that I had threatened to rape a student, but truly I had just disclosed who I had a crush on. And they believed those threats without question, because that's just what homosexuals do. And my parents, with their conservative religious beliefs, also believed that that's just what homosexuals do. So they worked directly with the schools to get my Myers-Briggs testing done, my evaluation, and then also an IQ test, because they wanted me put into special education. And my results came back showing that I wasn't a threat to anyone, and I had a high IQ. So they decided to just put me in a single room off of the library with a teacher and escorts to the bathroom. And nobody ever did anything about the bullying. I was getting bullied at home as well, because I was an abomination. And within a couple of months of that, I was pretty suicidal. So my parents and the school worked to get me put into the Human Services Center in Yankton. And that started a 3-year road of being institutionalized, trying to cure my gay, and Bible therapy, family therapy, personal counseling and personal therapy, and short-term stays, long-term stays, and a lot of harassment from my family and the people around me, including the people in the congregation and the people I was in school with. Not just the students, but also the teachers. Unfortunately, in this very conservative community, it seems like I was the scourge of the earth. Everyone hated me, and the way everyone was treating me, I quickly came to hate myself as much as they hated me. And you know, being raised in the family there was a lot of powerful communication and talks about humanism and things like that when I was younger, before they knew I was gay. And a lot of the historical conversations that we had were based on atrocities that happened to humankind, and one of those being what happened in World War II to the Jewish population, along with the Jews in the camps, the disabled, homosexuals, gypsies, and Jehovah's Witnesses were persecuted and killed. You know, when I was 16 years old, the state said homosexuality is not a disease. You cannot continually lock her up. She's not a threat to herself or you know, the population, so you can't do this. And that's when my parents decided to kick me out. I remember the day it happened. We were at our family therapy session, and my mom slapped the table and said, "That's it. You are just doing this to spite me. Everybody up, let's leave. You stay." That's it. They got up and left. Counselors didn't even know what to say. I had nothing to say. I was so ashamed, I just sat there staring at the table. And that was unforgivable. You know, their own beliefs, their own book that they preach about, that my father went to school for, says those who cast out their own family are dead to me. But somehow it just doesn't count if you're gay. I hated them for what they did to me, what they turned me into. I was a broken beast. All of my empathy was just destroyed by the way that I was treated, and I became dangerous. Because terrorism doesn't come from healthy people. It comes from people who have been othered their entire lives and cannot relate to humanity. What's dangerous about humanity is when you can no longer relate to the pain of another human being. And that's what I became. I joined the National Socialist Movement. I had another friend just as lost and hurt and angry as I was, and he was a white supremacist. And I was mixed race, but I'm pretty light-skinned, so I can get away with it. And Nobody needed to know I was a lesbian. So I joined with him. I became a member. I could throw out speeches just as entangling and exciting as Adolf Hitler himself. And with all of my knowledge of history, I could quote his speeches and quote their hate. And I had a hate family. I had a family. It didn't matter that they were horrible human beings. They were as lost and as angry as I was, and I was a part of a family. And that's not something I can really explain past that. A lot of people try to say, how could someone who's multiracial and queer be a part of something that hated both those things? And you have to be capable of putting yourself inside the head of someone who hated themselves so much that they were capable of doing that. And my logic was, if I'm gonna burn, I want my family to burn with me. And that's what drove me to be a part of it. I am lucky enough that they didn't ask me to walk into a Jewish synagogue and shoot up the place. Because in the shape I was in, I would have. And I'd be in prison for hate crimes. Being multiracial, being raised in a semi-compassionate family, I'm not racist. And that was what really started to push me away from being a part of the hate group. All of the things that they would say about Jews and Africans and everyone else that's not white, cisgender, and upper middle class, all of those things were just horrible. And as angry as I was, I couldn't be that horrible. Because the truth is, the only people I hated was me and my family, and the people who treated me like absolute crap. So I separated myself from them. And there I was, lost, broken, with absolutely no family. And my life crumbled apart so completely. I hit my rock bottom. I have PTSD, borderline personality disorder, general anxiety disorder, major depression. I've had a messed up life, and I was a messed up human. I couldn't hold a job longer than 3 weeks because of my meltdowns from anger and because of my extreme suicidality. I got into an abusive relationship with an ex-partner for 3 years and hated myself so much I didn't realize that I could say I didn't like it and that it was in my power to say I don't want to do this. I had no idea. So instead I just cut myself. Instead I just kept hating and causing chaos in the lives of the people around me. And I still remember my rock bottom. With my PTSD over the years not being able to cope the way I needed to, I developed a dissociative disorder with it. And whenever I would get overly stressed, I would go into these dissociative episodes. And you know, I don't remember going into it or anything, but I do remember coming out of it. I was sitting at an ex-girlfriend's house. She wasn't there. I was sitting at her kitchen table eating a bowl of Life cereal, the cinnamon kind. And I was only eating it with one hand and the other hand was swinging down beside me, and I feel numb everywhere. I can't process thoughts. I can't think words or anything like that. I'm just existing. I don't feel anything. I feel dead. And I don't really taste the cereal. I just see the box sitting in front of me. And I look at it. I look down and I see this huge puddle of blood. And I see my wrist slit. Still don't think anything, still don't feel anything. All I do is reach down and scoop the blood into my fingers, and the only thing that crosses my mind is that didn't feel the way I thought it would. I sent a text message to my ex's cousin, who I had worked with for a couple of weeks, and it came out so garbled that she immediately came over to find me like that and brought me to the hospital. And the ER was so busy. I was sitting in that room with a bandage on my wrist for 4 hours before Psych Eval came in to look at me. And the only thing I could sit there thinking the whole time is, this is a really messed up situation. Still no emotions, no real cognitive thoughts, no anything. I was just dead. and they hospitalized me. And I stayed there for 3 days, and then they let me out. And you know, I've got my ex telling me, and my ex's cousin telling me, and other people around me telling me how sick I am and how much I need help. And all I can think is, yeah, join the club. Everyone says that. And I ended up homeless. I had already been transient, sleeping on people's couches by that point, but after that, nobody was willing to take me because that was just a scary thing for people to go through. And now I get it. Now I get how messed up I was and how scary I was and how out of control I was. Now I get it. But back then, never. I spent the winter of 2008-2009 sleeping in the back of my Saturn Ion. I had sold off, pawned all of the tools that I had, everything I had, just to be able to try to survive. And after a while, I started getting really sick, and I thought it was just, you know, you're sleeping in a cold vehicle, you don't have good food to eat. There were days, sometimes I'd go 2-3 days without eating because I didn't have access to anything. And I thought it was just finally piling up on me. I went down to the community care clinic. Doctor comes in and goes, well, you know, you're not sick at all, you're just pregnant. Pregnant. I'm a lesbian, I don't have sex with men, how could I be pregnant? You must have mixed up my blood with somebody else's blood. This is insane. Just take another sample and I'll prove you wrong. Doctor says, fine, we'll do it again. They draw more blood, and this time they do a hormone test as well and calculate it back during that dissociative episode. And I have no recollection of any type of rape or anything, nothing. Because when you're dissociative, you're just not there. You're not connected. You're on autopilot. And here I am, the messed up human being I am. No job, no place to live, in the winter, who hates myself more than anyone on earth, with no future, and I'm growing life inside of me. How much more messed up does it get than that? So it scared me. I started working on my treatment, taking it seriously for once, because I thought that I'm either going to have a kid that's going to grow up and kill themselves or turn into some kind of alcoholic or drug addict, because I'm just not a human capable of raising a decent thing, much less a decent human. So I took it serious. And within a couple of months, I got so sick. I got influenza A, and I couldn't move. The county had helped me get an apartment, was paying my rent at the time. And my best friend found me, and he had to carry me into the ER, and I lost that baby. And everyone was afraid I was going to kill myself because they knew how hard I was working to try to save myself to be a decent parent. So after they let me out of the hospital, my best friends sat with me in shifts, and nobody left me alone. And one friend of mine just so happened to run out of weed, so he brought me to his dealer's house. And I met a young man there, and I was really angry about being there, and we had to sit there for a while. And I had the weirdest thoughts going through my head that I just didn't want to say out loud because they're just very conflicting. And here's one instance in my life that I'm sitting next to a guy and he actually smells good. Like, what the hell is going on there? Little did I know that my body is reacting to the miscarriage. I don't understand that. This revelation comes after the hormones calm down. But here's my body saying, oh, that one's gone. Let's rev up the system and see if everything functions, everything fires up. So here my pheromones are on full blast, and I smell his, and apparently we're a good match for making a healthy baby. So I literally said to him, dude, I don't know what to say. I'm a lesbian, but you smell good. Can I just try you once? Bam, pregnant again. Here, I was able to get out of a horrible situation through a horrible thing such as a miscarriage, and I just got myself pregnant again. What kind of messed up human being does that? Now I really know how sick I am. So I start working 40 hours a week on treatment. And my kid's dad's there helping me every minute of the way, being supportive. He let me live with them so I could start fully thinking about taking care of my mental health and not having to worry that much about anything else. And I had our kid, and you know, he worked hard to pay the bills for the place, and I worked hard on my mental health so I wouldn't raise some messed up human being. And after the hormones calmed down, after I had the kid, he didn't smell good anymore. I did not want him near me. I just didn't know what to think or say. I just said, please don't come near me. He was okay with that. There was no problem there. We were just doing what we had to survive and raise our kid, raise a good child. After a while, I couldn't take it anymore, and I moved out. And I let him know that that's how I felt, and that I didn't want to have any type of connection with him where anyone would try to say that we're together. And I continued to work on my mental health. And I spent literally 40 hours a week doing counseling and cognitive behavioral therapy, having homework, talking into a memo recorder, analyzing how I process the thoughts that I have, what my perception is, and how I can change it. And over a 4-year period, I remolded myself into a different kind of human being. And I could honestly look in the mirror and say that I love myself. And that was something I have never done in my life. My whole life, I've been sickly. All of my siblings are sickly. We have genetic disorders. And you know, it's something that was never really that much of a problem until I got pregnant with my son, because my body fell apart and my genetic disorder, which is a connective tissue disorder, was brought forth by the way my body loosened up for the pregnancy. So I'm finally in a good place in my head and in my spirit, and love myself and respect myself, and my body falls apart, quite literally. My pelvis won't even stay together, and I spend my last 3 months of pregnancy on bed rest. And within a year or two of having my kid, I got to the point where I couldn't walk anymore. And I had 4 surgeries in 3 years. Now I'm due for another surgery. And my life has lived in chronic pain. And it's hard to walk, it's hard to function, it's hard to be a single parent. Just after redefining myself, I had to redefine myself again. A big part of your identity is what you do for a living. And all of a sudden I couldn't do anything for a living anymore. So what am I? I have to be more than just a mom. So I cope with my disability by being a professional volunteer. After the messed up life I had and the way I was able to turn it around, I decided to volunteer in the community. I am the volunteer youth director for the Center for Equality. I liaise with the Department of Social Services South Dakota Youth Suicide Prevention Project. I coordinate with Lutheran Social Services for LGBT sex education for kids in their foster care programs and independent living centers. And I teach the South Dakota Domestic Violence Network how to incorporate safety procedure for same-sex couples into their crisis centers. And everything that I've ever had go wrong in my life, I'm doing my best to make sure that other people don't have to go through what I did, especially the kids. I don't want them to go down that road that I did, one of hate and one of self-destruction. If just one kid listens to my story and sees that you can come back from the worst things, everything I've ever been through in my life is worth it. And all I want to do is raise a good human, one who will be empathic, one who will be there for others, and one who will be able to stand up to whatever fate tosses at him. And I don't believe in hate anymore. I believe in love, and I believe in hope. That's it.